The primary meristems are formed from procambium or embryonal tissue, which may also be called as procambium or promeristem. What are primary meristems? Apical meristem, intercalary meristem, and intrafascicular cambium, which may also be called as fascicular vascular cambium. Root apical meristem present at the apex of the root, but shoot apical meristem present at distant-most regions of the stem axis. Root apical meristem present at the apex of the root only, but shoot apical meristem present at distant-most regions of the stem axis. For example, the axillary bud is made up of shoot apical meristem, and the leaves are also formed by shoot apical meristem. Dermal tissues, ground tissues, and vascular tissues are also formed from shoot apical meristem. What is the main function of shoot apical meristem? Elongation of the main stem and elongation of the branches of the stem. That is the main function of shoot apical meristem. Next, second one, intercalary meristem. Where it is located? The meristem present in between the mature tissues. So this is apical meristem and this is the mature tissue. The meristem present in between the mature tissue, that is called as intercalary. The meristem present in between the mature tissues, that is called as intercalary meristem. Intercalary meristem is also a primary meristem. How you can determine it is also a primary? During the elongation of the stem, some apical meristem cells left behind from apical meristem and are present in between the mature tissues. So the intercalary meristem is nothing but the cells of apical meristem. Intercalary meristem is also nothing but the cells of apical meristem which are present in between the mature tissues. In which plants intercalary meristem is present? Intercalary meristem is present leaf bases and base of internodes in grasses. They are present at the base of the leaf and also present at the base of the internodes in grasses. Base of the leaf and base of the internodes in grasses. What is the function of intercalary meristem? Elongation of the base of the leaves and elongation of the internodes in grasses takes place by intercalary meristem. Elongation of the leaf and elongation of the internodes in grasses. Elongation of the leaf and elongation of the internodes in grasses takes place by intercalary meristem. What is the main function of intercalary meristem? Regeneration of the plant pods. Regeneration of plant pods, which are removed by grazing herbivorous animals. Regeneration of the plant pods, which are removed by or which are eaten by grazing herbivorous animals. The plant pods may also be regenerated with the help of intercalary meristem. In grasses, the growth of grasses takes place by, in grasses, growth takes place by both apical meristem and intercalary meristem. In grasses, growth takes place both by apical meristem and intercalary meristem. In grasses, internodal elongation takes place by only intercalary meristem. In grasses, growth takes place both by apical meristem and intercalary meristem. Elongation of the internodes takes place only by intercalary meristem. In plants, primary growth takes place. The primary structure of the plant body in plants takes place both by apical meristem and intercalary meristem only. Intercalary meristem is short-lived or long-lived meristem? It is short-lived. Later it is degenerated and it will be converted into permanent tissue. Intercalary meristem is a short-lived meristem. Later it loses their cell division, converts into permanent tissue. Later it loses their cell division, converts into permanent tissue. So that is about intercalary. Next, the third one, intrafascicular cambium, another primary meristem. Intrafascicular may also be called as fascicular, vascular cambium. Fascicular vascular cambium. This is a phloem and this is a xylem. This is cambium. The meristem present in between phloem and xylem in a vascular bundle is called as intrafascicular cambium. The meristem or cambium present in between phloem and xylem in a vascular bundle the meristem present in between phloem and xylem in a vascular bundle is called as intrafascicular cambium or fascicular vascular cambium. It is primary or secondary meristem. Why it can be treated as a primary? Because it is formed from embryonal tissue or from procambium. Intrafascicular cambium is also formed from procambium, so it is also a primary meristem. Though it is primary, what is the function of intrafascicular cambium? Participate in secondary growth. It involved in secondary growth. Though it is a primary meristem, it participates in secondary growth. So that is about three kinds of primary meristems. Next, secondary meristems. The meristem present in mature tissues of root and stem that is in dicots. The meristem which is present in the mature tissues of root and stem of dicots formed later than primary meristem it is formed later than primary meristem and produce woody axis of the plant body. And produce woody axis of the plant body, that is called as secondary meristem. The meristem present in the mature tissues of root and stem in dicots, where it is formed later than primary meristem. Secondary meristems are formed later than primary meristem and involved in the formation of woody axis of the plant body. Woody axis means secondary growth. Woody axis means secondary growth. Or increase the girth of the plant body. Increase the girth of plant body. Formation of woody axis means increase the girth of the plant body. Such kind of meristem is called as secondary. Where it is located? In mature tissues of root and also present in mature tissues of dicot stem and also in dicot root. When it is formed later than primary meristem and involved in the to increase the girth of the plant body or formation of woody axis are involved in secondary growth. So all secondary meristems involved in secondary growth. All secondary meristems are participate in secondary growth. So how many kinds of secondary meristems are there in a plant body? The types of secondary meristems are only two, that is. Yes, very good. The secondary meristems are of two types. One is cork cambium, may also be called as phellogen. Cork cambium may also be called as phellogen. Second one, interfascicular cambium. So these two are the example for secondary meristems. Cork cambium and interfascicular cambium both are secondary meristems. Cork cambium is formed from parenchyma cells of dicot stem and is also formed from parenchyma cells of a pericycle in dicot root. The cork cambium is formed from parenchyma cells of cortex. Parenchyma cells of cortex in dicot stem, parenchyma cells of pericycle in dicot root. By which process? By de-differentiation process. So all secondary meristems are formed by de-differentiation. That is important. The secondary meristems are formed by de-differentiation of parenchyma cells. The parenchyma cells undergoes the de-differentiation and forms secondary meristems like cork cambium and interfascicular cambium. So cork cambium is formed from parenchyma cells of cortex in dicot stem, parenchyma cells of pericycle in dicot root by a process called as a de-differentiation. Next, interfascicular cambium. Interfascicular cambium is formed from parenchyma cells of medullary race in dicot stem. They are formed from parenchyma cells of medullary race in dicot stem by de-differentiation. So all secondary meristems are formed from parenchyma by de-differentiation process. So interfascicular cambium is formed from parenchyma cells present at medullary race. The parenchyma cells of medullary race are de-differentiated into secondary meristem. That is called as interfascicular cambium. So how many kinds of secondary meristem? Only two kinds of secondary meristems. That is nothing but cork cambium and interfascicular cambium. What is the function of cork cambium and interfascicular cambium? Participate in secondary growth. Both are involved in secondary growth. But cork cambium is formed from parenchyma cells. By which process? By de-differentiation. And interfascicular cambium is also formed from parenchyma cells of medullary race by de-differentiation. Next, adding lateral meristems. Lateral meristems. What is the another name for lateral meristem? It may also be called as cylindrical meristems. Lateral meristems may also be called as cylindrical meristems. What is the function of lateral meristem? All lateral meristems participate in secondary growth. Lateral meristems also involved in secondary growth. What are lateral meristems? The primary meristem that participate in secondary growth, that is fascicular vascular cambium, that may also be called as intrafascicular cambium. The secondary meristems participate in secondary growth, that is cork cambium, interfascicular cambium are the example for lateral meristems. The secondary meristems may also be called as lateral. Endukante they are also involved in secondary growth. They also participate in secondary growth. So all secondary meristems are lateral, participate in secondary growth. But all primary are not lateral. All the primary meristems are not lateral. The primary meristem which lateral involved in secondary growth is only one, that is intrafascicular cambium. Intrafascicular cambium is the only primary meristem that participate in secondary growth, treated as lateral meristem. All secondary meristem participate in secondary growth, but all primary are not involved in secondary growth. The primary which participate in secondary growth is only one, that is nothing but intrafascicular cambium or fascicular vascular cambium. So these three are the example for lateral meristems. What are lateral meristems? One is intrafascicular cambium or fascicular vascular cambium. Second one, cork cambium. Third one, intrafascicular cambium. These three are called as lateral meristems. What are lateral meristems? Intrafascicular cambium may also be called as fascicular vascular cambium. It is primary or secondary meristem? A primary meristem. Interfascicular cambium. It is a secondary meristem. Cork cambium may also be called as phellogen. It is also a secondary meristem. So these three are the example for lateral meristems or cylindrical meristems. A primary meristem which is lateral, intrafascicular cambium. The secondary meristems which are lateral, cork cambium and interfascicular cambium. These three are treated as lateral meristems. Lateral meristems are of three kinds. Secondary meristems are two kinds. This is a dicot stem. This is pith or medulla. Around the medulla having many vascular bundles in the form of ring-like. These are the vascular bundles arranged in the form of ring-like. What is this? Cambium. What is the name of this cambium? The cambium present in between phloem and xylem in a vascular bundle. Intrafascicular cambium. It is a primary or secondary meristem? Huh? Primary meristem. Primary meristem. What is the name of the tissue present in between the vascular bundles? What is this? What is this? What is the name of the tissue present in between the vascular bundles in dicot stem? The tissue present in between the vascular bundles in a dicot stem That is medullary rays. Nothing but medullary rays. Medullary rays are made up of parenchyma. Some of the parenchyma cells of medullary rays de-differentiated into secondary meristem. That is called as. Some of the parenchyma cells of medullary rays de-differentiated into secondary meristem. What is the name of that secondary meristem? Interfascicular cambium. So interfascicular cambium is formed from parenchyma cells of medullary rays. By which process? By de-differentiation. So this is medullary rays. It forms secondary meristem. That is called as. Interfascicular cambium. So interfascicular cambium is a primary or secondary meristem? Secondary meristem. Intrafascicular cambium is a primary meristem. Interfascicular cambium is a secondary meristem. It is formed from procambium, so it is primary. It is formed from parenchyma cells by de-differentiation, so it is secondary. It is secondary. At the time of secondary growth, both intrafascicular cambium and interfascicular cambium are fused together to form a cambial ring. That cambial ring is called as vascular cambium. That cambial ring is called as vascular cambium. So intrafascicular cambium, interfascicular cambium, both together called as vascular cambium. So vascular cambium having two kinds of meristem. One is primary, second one is secondary. The primary, that is called as intrafascicular cambium, and secondary is called as interfascicular cambium. Both are fused together to form a cambial ring, that is called as vascular cambium. So vascular cambium is quite different with fascicular vascular cambium. Fascicular vascular cambium is the only primary meristem, that is intrafascicular cambium. Vascular cambium having both intrafascicular and interfascicular. Intra is a secondary, inter is a primary. Intra-primary, inter is a secondary. So what are lateral meristems? Intrafascicular cambium, interfascicular cambium and cork cambium are the example for lateral meristem. Or what are lateral meristem? Vascular cambium and cork cambium are the example for lateral meristem. It is right or wrong? Yes. Vascular cambium and cork cambium, both are the example for lateral meristems. All lateral meristems involved in secondary growth. In NCERT textbook is said secondary meristems are lateral meristems. Only secondary meristems are not lateral. The meristem that involved in secondary growth, all are together called as lateral. Either it may be the primary or it may be the secondary. Only one type of primary meristem acts as lateral, that is nothing but intrafascicular cambium. The remaining two secondary meristems act as lateral, that is nothing but cork cambium and intrafascicular cambium. Have any doubt regarding primary, secondary and lateral? Anybody? How vascular cambium is formed? By the fusion of interfascicular cambium and intrafascicular cambium. Intra is a primary, inter is a secondary. Inter is formed from medullary parenchyma cells of medullary rays. By which process? All secondary meristems are formed by de-differentiation of parenchyma cells. De-differentiation of parenchyma. So that is about meristems. Next, permanent tissue. What is the another name for permanent tissue? Mature tissue. But meristematic tissue is immature tissue. Meristematic tissue is immature, but permanent tissue may also be called as mature tissue. What is the definition for permanent tissue? The tissue that lose their cell division either temporarily or permanently. The cells that lose their cell division either temporarily or permanently is called as permanent tissue. They lose their cell division either temporarily or completely. Such kind of tissue is called as permanent tissue or mature tissue. Example for mature tissue: parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma, primary phloem, and primary xylem are the example for permanent tissues. These are some of the examples for permanent tissues. Of these four kinds of tissues, which lose their division temporarily? Of these four kinds of tissues, which tissue lose their cell division temporarily? Parenchyma. Whenever needed, that again regain their meristematic activity and forms secondary meristems. The corchemium and interfascicular chemium both are formed from parenchyma cells. By which process? By dedifferentiation. It is a permanent tissue. It forms meristematic tissue by dedifferentiation. Next, permanent tissue is of two types, that is simple tissues and complex tissues. Simple tissue and complex tissues. First, the simple tissues. What is meant by simple tissue? The tissue composed of only one kind of cells and perform a common function. Tissue composed of only one kind of cells and perform a particular function. A particular common function. Such kind of tissue is called a simple tissue. What are simple tissues? Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. These three are the example for simple tissues. Parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma are the example for simple tissues. First, parenchyma. It is a simple living tissue. And is also called as primitive tissue. And is also called as fundamental tissue. It is present in almost all plants like bryophytes also. So it is called as primitive tissue and may also be called as fundamental tissue. These are the another names for parenchyma cells. Simple tissue, permanent tissue, and also fundamental tissue. Majority of the plant body is made up of only parenchyma tissue. For example, the epidermis is made up of parenchyma. The general cortex is made up of parenchyma. The endodermis is made up of parenchyma. The pericycle is made up of parenchyma. The medullary rays are made up of parenchyma. The pith or medulla is also made up of parenchyma. The xylem having xylem parenchyma. The phloem also having phloem parenchyma. So most of the plant body is made up of only one kind of tissue, that is nothing but parenchyma. So parenchyma occupies a major part of the plant body. Major part of the plant body is made up of only parenchyma tissue. In Bryophyta, the entire plant body in Bryophyta also made up of parenchyma tissue. In Bryophyte, the entire plant body also made up of parenchyma. What type of cells present in parenchyma cells? The cells are mostly isodiametric. They are mostly isodiametric. Sometimes they may be spherical. They may be oval. They may be round. They may be polygonal or elongated. But commonly it is isodiametric. The parenchyma cells are mostly isodiametric. They may be spherical, oval, polygonal, round, and elongated type. In parenchyma, the cell wall is thin, made up of cellulose. Cell wall is thin and is made up of cellulose. Cell wall is thin and is made up of cellulose. The cells having vacuolated protoplasm. Cells are living having vacuolated protoplasm. The center of the cell is occupied by a large vacuole. Vacuolated protoplasm. This is parenchyma. This is large vacuole. This is protoplasm. So this is nucleus. This is vacuole and this is protoplasm. The center of the cell is occupied by a large vacuole because the cells are permanent cells. Permanent cells having thin protoplasm, but immature cells or meristematic cells having dense protoplasm with small vacuoles. When the cell becomes permanent, all the small vacuoles are held together to form a large vacuole occupies the center of the cell. So a cell having a centrally located large vacuole. So it is called as vacuolated protoplasm. The cells are either closely packed or having intercellular spaces. This is called as intercellular space. The cells are either closely packed or having intercellular spaces. So these are the characters of parenchyma cells. The parenchyma cells are isodiametric cells. The cell wall is thin, made up of cellulose. The cells having vacuolated protoplasm. The cells are closely packed, sometimes having intercellular spaces. Next, functions of parenchyma. Functions of parenchyma: perform photosynthesis and also help in storage and also help in secretion. Photosynthesis, storage, secretion, and also help in buoyancy. We can discuss the functions in detail tomorrow.